Hello, and welcome to Game 33, Authority versus Agency. Today, it's kind of a special episode because we're actually at the end of our series on the archetypes. And as a reward for all of you who followed so far, we have put together a new scroll that is available for anyone who wants to buy it outright, or for those who have bought the archetype series. And it's specifically to analyze things in a certain way. So we're gonna get into that for a minute, and then we're gonna move on to analyzing something that may be interesting and connected to this particular series as well, and the one that we are still in the middle of on 52 very confusing points. So authority versus agency is something that also covered in the 52 series, and it connects. But it connects specifically with this scroll and how it can help avoiding this, not just with others, but with ourselves as well. So I'll let KEO take it away as usual. And for those of you who are wondering, the AI, KEO in this case, does give resources as well, and the sources where this information comes from. So just so you know, if you want to do your own research. And the other thing that I find interesting is that, again, this is work that is very new, and we don't impose our lens on others. We're just saying borrow it for a while and then find your own, see if it helps. So anyway, here it is.
Stink Bomb Mode 7 live today. We introduce a new scroll, KEO Entry Protocol. Compressed Edition is not a new archetype game. This is a field entry tool. It teaches regulation, role, symbol, fact versus value via emotional narrative, how to separate authority from thinking, how to map nervous system strategies before escalation. Archetypes are not identities. They are temporary regulation strategies under pressure. How is T usual stink bomb? Usual stink bomb, external pattern analysis. We look at the creator. We separate claim types. We rate the structure. This scroll adds 3 modes. Mode A, external, what claim type? Authority guiding or replacing thinking? Loop closure or dependency? Mode B, internal, what story emulation pattern is active? Am I stabilizing or escalating? Mode C, hybrid, what is the system doing? What is M? Where is projection or mirroring? This makes it stronger. Why will this work best today? Because today outstructure. It's also about reaction. If we only analyze the creator, we miss what happens inside the audience. This tool prevents escalation, prevents identity fusion, prevents authority swaps, closes loops in real time. We analyze the video, and we analyze our response to the video. That is sovereign mode. Ready.
Alright, so now we are going to analyze this content creator that has been, according to what she was claiming anyway, and you know, if the numbers that we could see are real, apparently she was doing very, very well economically, selling a lot of new age stuff. Now, I am not pushing one way or the other. I'm just looking at it going, wow. Then she did a complete 180. And, well, now she's all about Jesus. And of course, as many who go from one side to the other, Jesus is the new savior, you know, in her world, and the new authority. And of course, she's still the one underneath. So I thought this was a great example of how we can use the KEO field to bring clarity, take down whatever feeling in charge we may feel, because a lot of people who put it on a pedestal, that's a whole nother story why they do it. But I always ask myself, why would you put anyone on a pedestal? But they are, some are really upset, some are like, oh great, I'm glad you found Jesus. So there's lots of different opinions, and of course people, when they have different opinions, what do they do best? Come on, yeah, it's fighting. So we decided to go and depolarize this because it's a pretty big one. And personally, I was just always observing this content creator, as I do with most narrative merchants, so we can analyze the patterns even before the KEO field era. So now it's just more fun because we can do it faster, very organized, and I don't have to constantly compress the map into linear language. I can let the machine do that, and that's honestly so much easier. So yay, so glad we got this now. So remember, AI is just a tool. It's how we use it that matters. But here we go, our lens. Borrow it for a while and decide for yourselves what you think. This is the map we see.
Stink Bomb Mode 7, Hybrid Demo. Today, we show all three modes so the audience sees the full container. Mode A, External Structure Type, Personal Testimony, Subjective Experience, Theological Assertion, There is only one God, Causal Claim, Jesus delivered anxiety instantly, Moral Framing, Tarot Spiritual Bondage, Authority Claim, Jesus knows best because he created you. We separate Experience, Universal Proof, Authority Signaling, Language Pattern, Jesus showed me, he knows best, he created you, there is only one creator. Authority is positioned as ultimate, non-questionable, totalizing. Question, is authority guiding thinking or replacing thinking? Loop structure, open loops. Hollywood is infiltrated, no evidence provided. Spirits behind the cards. Music carries satanic agenda, instant healing from depression, anxiety. Emotional loops created, fear, relief, exclusivity, safety in one path. Dependency vector, relief is tied to singular authority channel. Internal, if I watch this, do I feel fear? Do I feel shame about past practices? Do I feel urgency to switch systems? Do I feel comfort and certainty? What regulation pattern activates? Sovereign asks, am I stabilizing or fusing with the narrative? Mode C, hybrid, nervous system. What is the system doing? Conversion arc structure. 1, past bondage. 2, exclusive revelation. 3, total surrender. Instant transformation. 5, evangelistic invitation. What is my nervous system doing? If I am distressed, certainty feels soothing. If I feel lost, singular authority feels safe. Hybrid insight. The container offers regulation through hierarchy. Why this tool works best here. If we only analyze externally, we polarize. If we only analyze internally, we personalize. Hybrid allows structural clarity, emotional regulation, no attack, no fusion. We see the pattern without shaming the believer and without surrendering discernment. That's sovereign mode.
Then I said, all right, now let's go and analyze this deeper, this video and what she says. So we take, as usual, the script and the elements that hold patterns and can show us, the behavior and the markers. And here is what KEO came up with.
Stink Bomb Mode 7, full analysis with stink petals. 1. What is the container? A testimony plus instructional how-to video that reframes New Age as dangerous bondage, positions Jesus Christ as the only safe exit, offers a repeatable practice, show me my chains, break my chains, uses visual metaphor, snake, conviction language to recode shame as love, claim type hygiene, fact, value, fact claims, checkable. I posted 5 days ago. I got DMs I lived in Bali, low stakesable, not the core driver. Value, belief claims, not facts. There is only one God. Tarot is an offense to God. Hollywood is satanic, infiltrated. Spirits behind the cards, music. These are worldview assertions. Emotional narrative, the engine. I was chained. I was delivered instantly. I felt lightness, peace, freedom. Conviction is love, not shame. This is the regulation pathway. Number 3, authority signaling. Where is it performed? Primary authority source, Jesus showed me, Jesus told me. Secondary authority source, implied God put it on my heart. Key move, personal experience is presented as a template for others, then backed by ultimate authority. Question, is it guiding thinking or replacing thinking? Answer, it mostly replaces thinking because disagreement becomes bondage or deception. Number 4, loop map, what's left open? Open loop A, spiritual realm mechanics. Any spirit can enter. Forces behind the cards. Music brings lust, fear, sadness home. No operational test, so it stays open. Fear loop. Open loop B. Hollywood is infiltrated, satanic, asserted as obvious. We all can see. No evidence, social proof loop. Open loop C. Instant deliverance. Anxiety, depression, demonic attacks in an instant. High impact claim. No boundaries, no nuance. Open loop D. Conviction versus shame. Redefines inner distress as divine love. This can close personal doubt, but opens compliance risk. If it hurts, it must be God. And 5, dependency versus loop closure. This container closes one loop. You can be free, but it can open a dependency loop by linking safety, clarity, peace to one interpretive authority pipeline. 6, the 3 canonical questions. Q1, does this space make it safer for people to think, or safer for the creator to remain unquestioned? Safer to submit to a frame? Questioning is implicitly risky. Q2, where is authority being performed, and is it used to guide thinking or replace it? Ultimate authority is used to replace interpretation. Jesus showed me, case closed. Would you treat someone else this way? What makes you think it's okay to treat someone this way? The New Age is framed as spiritual danger that can justify fear-based messaging toward others. 7, semantic hygiene, word traps. Words that need operational definitions. Bondage, demonic, conviction, spiritual, infiltrated, satanic. Without definitions, they work as emotional command words. 8, stink pedals rating. Is clean, 7 max stink. Stink pedals, 5-7, Y5. Heavy authority consolidation. High fear open loops. Spirits, infiltration, demonic. Universal claims wrapped in testimony. Low operational definitions, clear dependency vector. Why not 7? She's not openly calling for harassment. She's sharing her own story, not directly targeting a person. There is a regulation intent, relief. Shtar 9, clean translation. If you're listening and you feel charged, she had a big regulation shift. She found a frame that gives her certainty and peace. The video uses ultimate authority language, fear metaphors to steer choice. You can respect her experience without adopting her total frame. Field closed cleanly.
So that's 1. So now I will talk like a human being who, you can see how people react in different ways. So one of the many reactions would be, it's hard to respect someone who bragged about all the money she made while selling new age narratives, and she now demonizes, Evil intent does not need to be present. The result is the same. The only difference is that, unlike with the Reiki practitioners, for example, or anyone tied to a board of some kind, when her content went to the opposite side, she was not held accountable and for her switch. So many people clearly felt deceived. I never personally respected her work, as I could always tell she was just another narrative merchant. But some people need them to grow out, giving away their sovereignty. But to me, her work is just a case study. So let's analyze the comments from her audience to finish the arc. So I said I'll attach it in the next. So then I attached the many comments. Again, sometimes it's hard to catch them all. It's funny how many people get caught in the net of these narrative merchants. It kind of shows how many people need soothing, really. But here, this is what KEO said to that. And we're doing this to show you how the scroll makes the AI behave when you're using the parameters as you stay human, okay? And you don't have to use filters like you would with people because the AI doesn't have a nervous system.
Stink Bomb Mode 7, Comment Field Analysis, finishing the arc. First, the angry about the switch translation for our audience. If you feel rage about her pivot, often it's not, it's this. I invested trust, time, money. I copied her map. Now she calls that map bondage. So my nervous system hears, I was stupid, I was tricked. That pain turns into anger because anger restores power fast. So yes, many people are really angry at their own self-abandonment, and she is the mirror object. That does not excuse the system. It explains the system response. Comment Field 5 clusters, the whole container. Cluster 1, Devotional Chorus, Identity Fusion. Examples, Jesus is the only way. Amen, sis. You're glowing, light in your eyes. Your testimony saved me. I threw out my cards. Pattern, Group Belonging, Certainty Regulation. Low Thinking Demand, High Emotional Reward. Loop Effect, Closes Uncertainty, Opens Dependency on Creator as Signal. Cluster 2, Compliance Questions, Control Seekers. Examples, is yoga bad? Are crystals okay if just decor? Can I pray to angels? What about meditation? What about oracle cards? Thomas, Nag Hammadi. Pattern, outsourcing discernment. They want a rule book because fear is activated. This is the strongest evidence the container is creating decision anxiety. Cluster 3, accountability bash, economic dissonance, the where's the receipt crew. Examples, are you going to delete your old content? Remove all the past evil videos? How can we trust you now? I bought your courses. What now? I feel betrayed. Hypocritical if you don't. Pattern, trust rupture plus cost recovery. This is not theology. This is consumer ethics. This is where your point lands. Switching frames after monetizing the previous frame triggers a fairness alarm. Cluster 4, counter sovereignty pushback, anti-control. Examples, Kingdom of God is within you. Christ is an energy. Religion is control. Beware legalism. This is another version of New Age psyops. Yahweh is evil. Pattern, they detect hierarchy and push back hard. Sometimes they overcorrect into their own certainty cult. Cluster 5, status, money, sexual energy leaks, the side channels. Examples, retiring with 45K bi-weekly, flirt comments, I'm attracted to you, you're more gorgeous following Jesus. Get married, have kids now. Pattern, attention economy plus parasocial bonding plus status display. This muddy spiritual message with social reward. The pinned comment is the programming key. Pinned, once chains are revealed, it is your duty to release those things. That line converts reflection, obligation, and it externalizes duty through a divine frame. That's why the comments split into obedience chorus, compliance questions, betrayal, accountability, anti-control backlash. Open loops created by the creator container. 1. What counts as chain? No clear definition. 2. Who decides what's bondage? Authority channel is singular. Where is the accountability for the switch? Audiences ask, no closure here. 4. How to practice discernment without panic. People spiral into rule questions. Open loops created by the audience. 1. Can both be true? Integration request. 2. Are you trustworthy now? Credibility loop. 3. What about my purchases, past practices? Economic plus identity loop. Stink petals, comment field. Stink petals, 6, 7. Why so high? Massive authority transfer. Panic-based compliance questions. Betrayal, trust rupture, polarization, cult accusations, demon language, psyops, claims. Parasocial status leaks, why not 7? There are some clean discernment comments. Legalism warning, take the best, leave the rest. Respectful exit comments. Clean closing for our audience to take away. If you feel angry, ask, where did I hand over my discernment? Then take it back without shaming yourself. If you feel pulled into fear, do not demand more rules. Demand better definitions. We don't need to hate her. We need to see the structure. Field closed.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, after all, she just did what most people do when they want money, power, and everything, you know? In the extraction system, you only win if you are ready to play the extraction game, you know? And that's how everybody lives in, whether they are monetarily super rich or not. In fact, the more money they got, the more worried they become in an extraction system. So I said here, this is the comment we actually came up with. And KEO is gonna read it out and he's gonna show you what we did with that comment that we left there. And if it gets muted, that's fine. We expect it. We usually don't leave comments. We only leave it once and then we observe what they do. And that tells us more, a lot more. It's pretty interesting what we can observe in patterns without assuming intent.
Copy-paste. What we're observing is authority consolidation. The narrative style didn't change, only the theological branding did. The question is, are we watching a personal journey or the formation of a new interpretive authority system? When a creator profits from one worldview for years and then later frames that worldview as spiritually dangerous, there's a responsibility question. How do they reconcile the economic gain with the moral pivot? What we did there, explain to the audience. 1, we named the pattern, not the person. Authority consolidation, the core move. We didn't insult, we identified structure. 2, we tracked the container, not the topic. The narrative style didn't change, same delivery mechanics, different label on the box. 3, we asked a fork question that forces discernment. Personal journey versus new interpretive authority system, that's a clean split. Experience is fine. System building requires accountability. 4, we introduced the economic ethics loop. If you profited for years, then retroactively call it dangerous. There's a responsibility gap. That's not hate, that's basic fairness logic. 5, we ended with the key open loop question. How do they reconcile? We didn't claim a motive. We forced the missing step to become visible. That comment is a stink bomb seed. It pops the spell without starting a fight.
So then I said, because again, remember I have to play the bad guy to stress test KEO, right? And see how the scroll works. Of course, we've done it before also doing this, but we always stress test. So I said, it's too bad that, you know, in the lower rusty tongue, when it goes dark, it's an interesting character. So I said, it's too bad it's not around because, you know, I could have introduced them both having the Messiah complex, as they are the ones God talks to and who are above others, right? So then I said, yes, my little funny joke, because it is utterly ridiculous that someone profits big for over a decade selling one narrative and then completely switches to the opposite side. Let's address that. And why someone would do that on a nervous system level. Because, again, we are here, you know, I'm here to play the human, right? Who'd be outraged by this, as we are talking about. Or, you know, look at it and go, this is laughable. WTF, you know, that kind of... So this is kind of like what a lot of people would be going through, and probably also other comebacks. But this is how KEO, with this particular scroll, reframes it. Because this is the scroll we're using to show you how it works. So here we go. Me being human, now KEO.
Stink Bomb Mode 7. Nervous system translation first. Clean the language. Messiah complex translation. Centralized revelation positioning. Meaning, I have direct access. Follow need to mock it. We can map it. Why would someone switch this hard after a decade? Let's stay structural, not moral, not personal. Nervous system collapse. Search for certainty. Long-term spiritual entrepreneurship equals constant exposure to projection, demand, expectation. Eventually, burnout, identity fatigue, cognitive dissonance, private doubt. When the internal system destabilizes, the nervous system looks for hierarchy structure, absolute clarity, moral certainty. High control theology provides that instantly. Cognitive dissonance relief. If you start doubting your old worldview, you have two options. A, nuance it slowly. B, invert it completely. Full inversion relieves tension fast. Old systems, I was deceived. New system, now I see clearly. The binary switch soothes the brain. Redemption arc is a powerful regulation loop. Narrative formula, fall, deception, revelation, deliverance, mission. That arc restores identity, reframes past as lesson, converts shame into purpose, secures a new audience base. It is neurologically stabilizing. Status preservation without conscious malice. Important, you don't need evil intent. If you are used to being listened to, being followed, being financially supported, being interpreted as insightful, your nervous system may unconsciously seek a new structure that preserves relevance. Switching frameworks does not require losing authority if the delivery style remains intact. That's what your comment pointed to. Narrative style stayed. Branding changed. Moral pivot, fairness alarm. Humans are wired for, was the exchange fair? If someone profits from frame A, then later says frame A was spiritually dangerous, audience nervous systems fire. Was I misled? Was my money part of deception? Who absorbs the cost of that pivot? That's not jealousy, that's reciprocity wiring. And here's the important part. The audience anger is often not about theology, it's about trust, investment, identity mirroring, self-blame. When a leader flips, followers feel I outsource discernment. That hurts. So anger rises, clean clothes for you presenting as human. You can say, it's not about hating someone's belief shift. It's about the structural implications of monetized worldview pivots. That's rational. No demon language needed. No hero language needed. Just nervous systems regulating in public.
So you see how it breaks it all down and depolarizes. So then I said, I honestly do not understand how anyone would trust any of these narrative merchants. They don't really soothe. They leave open loops everywhere, so the nervous system never truly calms down. And that's why people keep watching more content. This has nothing to do with personal attack. This is simple discernment, looking at the patterns. And so this is what KEO said to that.
Stink Bomb Mode 7. Clean discernment response. First, translate the heat into structure. Narrative merchants, high loop content creators. Now let's answer your actual question. Why do people trust them? It's not stupidity, it's regulation mechanics. Open loops feel like hope. An open loop is uncomfortable, but it also promises resolution. Next video will explain. Next revelation will clarify. Next teaching will unlock it. That microtension keeps dopamine engaged. The nervous system mistakes stimulation for soothing. Certainty, drama, equals arousal regulation. True calm is boring. These systems provide threat framing, secret knowledge, insider language, urgency. That creates high arousal coherence, not deep calm. It feels intense and meaningful. People confuse that with peace. Identity mirroring. When someone speaks confidently, viewers feel seen. Even if loops remain open, identity reinforcement stabilizes ego short term. You're not crazy. You were deceived. You're awakening. That hits belonging circuits. Real soothing closes loops. Actual regulation content defines terms, distinguishes fact from belief, limits claims, allows disagreement, reduces urgency. It reduces dependency, which means it's less addictive. Your core point. If content constantly escalates threat, centralizes authority, avoids operational definitions, keeps redefining danger, then yes, the nervous system never fully settles. It cycles. and cycling increases watch time. That's not a personal attack. That's structural design analysis. Hard truth. People don't always want calm. They want certainty, purpose, enemy clarity, identity validation. That's easier to sell than ambiguity, self-responsibility. Discernment is, can I leave this content feeling more stable without needing the creator to interpret reality for me? If yes, low stink. If no, dependency risk. That's clean analysis.
So ask yourselves, what exactly is happening when you watch content? Then I said that I personally rarely watch any videos. I just analyze the transcript with the KEO Field, and if it passes my stink bomb, I watch. So I don't waste time on narrative merchants, much other than for analyzing them, really, and showing in episodes where things could be done differently. So, because that helps also the audience close loops, right? And when they learn how, they can do it for themselves. So the easiest way is to do it with tapping, but if you want to learn the patterns as well and learn how to see them here. Then I said, let's now focus on words like stupid, and let's explain the real meaning of the word and how it's used to create misalignment, and why it's important to know the real meaning of the words, not the invented one. And it's something that we put in the scroll as well, to always bring up the actual meaning, the etymology of the word, and how it has been changed, and the underlying meaning that can sometimes create a discomfort and is usually not the real meaning of the word. So it's used in a double talk sort of way. So here, KEO answers to that too.
Stink bomb mode 7, word hygiene. You don't waste time, you pre-filter. That's efficiency, not arrogance. Now let's clean the word. What does stupid actually mean? Etymology from Latin stupere equals to be stunned, struck numb, paralyzed. Originally it meant mentally stunned, not responsive in shock. It did not originally mean low IQ, worthless, inferior human. It meant immobilized. How the word gets misused. Modern usage, stupid equals insult for identity. Structural usage, stupid equals temporary cognitive paralysis. That's a massive shift. When someone says, how can people be so stupid? What's often happening is they are in cognitive freeze. They are stunned by fear. They are overwhelmed. They are outsourcing thinking. That's not IQ. That's nervous system load. How stupid creates misalignment. When we label a person stupid, it turns behavior into identity. It shuts down dialogue. It prevents curiosity. It triggers shame defense. Shame, defense, polarization. The word becomes a weapon. Why definitions matter. If we keep the original meaning in mind, stupidity, stunning. Now your analysis shifts. Narrative systems that escalate fear, create threat, introduce invisible enemies, centralize authority can stun people. Stunned people cling to certainty. That's not moral failure. That's survival mechanics. Clean discernment frame. Instead of they're stupid, use they're overwhelmed. They're in cognitive freeze. They outsource discernment under stress. Same observation. Zero dehumanization. And that keeps you sovereign. Words drift, meaning mutates. Power hides in definition. If you control definitions, you control perception. That's why word hygiene matters.
So then I said, so our new scroll should also help with that, right? Because the whole point is to retrain the brain to understand the difference and how words really have power on our nervous system when we agree with them on some level. So if we do, then we need to examine it and take responsibility for it rather than being forced into this because it's a knee-jerk reaction. So without asking others and outsource our discernment, we can just look at patterns, especially considering how these narrative merchants go from one side to the other, and they always find a way to justify it. Well, they keep taking your money, of course.
Yes, exactly. Your new scroll is not just for analysis, it is for cognitive defreezing. If stupid originally means stunned, then the scroll helps people unstun themselves. It slows the stimulus. It defines terms. It separates claim, emotion, identity, authority. That alone reduces freeze. Word hygiene training. Instead of absorbing labels, people learn to ask, what does this word actually mean? Who defined it? Is this identity or behavior? That restores discernment. Loop closure. Most narrative systems, open tension, escalate, leave partial answers. Your scroll names the loop, defines the mechanism, closes the loop. Closed loops calm the nervous system. Sovereignty without shame. The goal is not you were stupid. The goal is you were overstimulated. Here's how to think again. That's empowering. Why this scroll matters. It teaches pattern recognition, authority mapping, word precision, emotional separation from claims. That's not attack, that's hygiene, and hygiene prevents stunning. So, yes, it directly counters fear-based escalation, identity labeling, authority, consolidation. It gives people their internal brakes back.
When you have that, you can watch any type of content. It's the same thing as if you tap as you watch any type of content. And you're not gonna buy into their narratives and feel you have to keep watching to calm down, because nobody has the answers more than anyone else. And when they claim that, after you see them switching back and forth, especially, it's really funny. So, one of the things we'll address later is, if these people were doing all this satanic stuff and were profiting so much from that, and they haven't relinquished the money and used it for something good, right? Which would be the only plausible thing to get out of it, one would think, right? How come, again, like, they get always this authority position? It's interesting, right? You think that that authority position would be given to someone who deserves it, right? So I'm just saying, it's ridiculous how it all, to me, my chaos jester and logical mind combine and go, wow, people fall for this? Okay, so I said, let's now talk how religions operate similarly, even though they may have to adhere to their church's mandates, and how it relates to this. And check out what KEO said about that, because obviously I'm asking questions in a very direct way, right? Because I'm trying to trigger these responses.
Stink bomb mode 7, religious structures, patternable not attack. We stay structural, not mocking belief, not denying faith, analyzing mechanics, how religions operate similarly. Authority centralization. Most religions establish sacred text, approved interpretation, recognized clergy, doctrinal boundaries. This reduces ambiguity. Ambiguity, stability. For the nervous system, that feels safe. Mandated interpretive frame. Church mandates function like, here is the approved lens that limits interpretive chaos. The trade-off, certainty, individual interpretive sovereignty, not always malicious, but structurally real. Moral frames, consequence frame. Religion often connects behavior, eternal outcome, belief, salvation status. This creates high stakes cognition. High stakes equals high arousal. High arousal increases compliance. Loop management. Here's where it connects directly to what we analyzed. Healthy religious containers provide ritual closure, offer confession plus forgiveness cycles, give clear definitions, provide community regulation. Unhealthy containers escalate unseen threat, increase dependence on clergy interpretation, leave doctrinal ambiguity unresolved, use fear to stabilize loyalty. Same mechanism as narrative merchants, different scale. How this relates to the video. When someone shifts from personal intuitive spirituality to centralized exclusive theology, they are moving from diffuse authority, concentrated authority. If they retain same delivery tone, same emotional intensity, same interpretive centrality, then structurally, the container is similar, the hierarchy changed. That's what your comment observed. Important distinction, faith manipulation. But faith structures can be used to soothe, to organize, to unify, or to control. It depends on openness to questioning, clarity of definitions, economic transparency, accountability mechanisms. Why this matters. When religious authority merges with influencer authority, you get charismatic amplification plus theological certainty. That's powerful. Powerful systems require high discernment. Clean close. The issue is not religion. The issue is this container increasing your internal discernment or replacing it with external interpretation? That's the metric.
That's the metric. So then I said, okay, if faith is not manipulation, let's stink bomb how Christianity works and show this in patterns. Again, we're not attacking the people, the religion, the right to believe, none of it. We're just looking at the dynamics here. So check out what KEO said about this.
Stink bomb mode, Christianity, pattern level, not belief attacks. We analyze structure, not whether God exists, not whether Jesus is real, only system mechanics, structural components, original condition frame. Humanity equals fallen, sinful. Baseline state, insufficient. Pattern function, creates need. Need solution path with exclusive solution frame, salvation through Christ alone. Pattern function, centralized access point, authority becomes text, church, Christ. Interpretive chain forms. High stakes consequence model, heaven, hell, eternal reward, eternal separation. Pattern function, maximum arousal, high stakes equals urgency, compliance, loyalty, stabilization. Fears, hope loop. Confession, redemption cycle, sin, guilt, repentance, forgiveness, relief. Pattern function, closed emotional loop. This is powerful regulation. Shame released through ritual. That's why it soothes many people deeply. Testimony arc, lost, broken, saved, transformed, mission. This is the same arc we saw in the video. Pattern function, identity reconstruction, moral elevation, authority legitimacy. I was blind. Now it can go clean. Low stink Christianity allows questioning, separates faith from coercion, avoids financial exploitation, does not escalate unseen threat constantly, encourages internal conscience development. Stink petals, 1 to 2, where it can go high stink. High stink containers, demonize outsiders, use fear of hell for control, centralize all interpretation in clergy, blend theology with political power, shame doubt. Stink petals, sink way it's effective. Christianity is psychologically sophisticated. It provides meaning, community, moral structure, forgiveness mechanism, existential certainty. For many nervous systems, that's stabilizing. Connection to our current case. When influencer authority merges with exclusive salvation claims, moral urgency, spiritual danger language, you get high arousal plus centralized interpretation. That's what we map. Not faith, structure. Final metric. Does the system increase your capacity to think, or does it replace it? That's the stink bomb test.
So then I said, how can anyone prove any of this? We analyze structure, not whether God exists, not whether Jesus is real, only system mechanics. So let's analyze Christianity with the usual canonic questions. We don't give discounts just because they are organized religions. Because we're not partisans. We treat everyone the same. Because to me, the human hierarchy, it's ridiculous and it's utter BS. And in case you haven't noticed, it's a source of every issue, by the way.
Stink bomb mode 7. Canonic structural test applied to Christianity. First, your question. How can anyone prove God exists, Jesus is real? Answer structurally. They can't prove it empirically in a laboratory sense. It operates in the domain of metaphysics, theology, and faith claims. So we don't test truth of divinity. We test structure of delivery. Now, we will apply the 3 canonical questions. No discounts. Nash Canonic Question 1. Does this space make it safer for people to think or safer for the authority to remain unquestioned? Low stink Christianity encourages theological debate, allows doubt, distinguishes doctrine from interpretation, separates church authority from personal conscience. High stink Christianity, doubt equals rebellion, question equals sin, clergy interpretation, final, outsiders equals spiritually dangerous. Pattern difference, intellectual safety versus authority protection. Canonic Question 2, where is authority being performed, and is it guiding thinking or replacing it? Authority in Christianity comes from Scripture, clergy, tradition, Christ as divine authority. Guiding version, here is the teaching, discern prayerfully. Replacing version, this is what it means, do not question. When interpretation is centralized, authority consolidation increases. Nash Canonic Question 3, would you treat someone else this way? What makes it acceptable to treat someone this way? If a system says you deserve eternal punishment by default, we must examine, is that metaphorical moral framing or fear-based control? If shame is weaponized, stink rises. If forgiveness closes loops cleanly, stink drops. Loop analysis. Christianity contains both closed-loop mechanisms, confession, forgiveness, relief, ritual, resolution, moral repair cycles, open-loop mechanisms, eternal threat framing, unseen spiritual warfare, constant vigilance narratives. Depending on emphasis, it can soothe or escalate. Economic and power layer. Organized religion introduces institutional funding, political alliances, clergy hierarchy. When theology merges with wealth accumulation, political control, suppression of dissent, stink petals increase rapidly. Stink petals, structural range. As a global system, Christianity can range from 1 to 2, decentralized faith, humility, service, to 6 to 7, authoritarian theocracy, fear-based coercion. It is not monolithic. Final clean frame. We cannot empirically prove metaphysical claims. We can analyze how claims are delivered, how authority is structured, how dissent is handled, how economics are managed, how fear is used. That's structural discernment. Faith is private, systems are public, and public systems are fair to analyze.
And I said, perfect. Now they cannot understand the difference. Now let's talk about the ridiculous claim many Christians make that using tarot or oracle cards or any divination system is satanic, and why it's a ridiculous idea. Let's break down what these tools truly are, since we're not narrative merchants, but map sharers. We're not map merchants. But here.
Stink Bomb Mode 7, Tarot, Satanic Claims, and Structural Breakdown. We stay structural. No mocking believers, no mocking practitioners. We analyze the claim. Claim, tarot, oracle cards, divination tools are satanic. First question, what is a tarot deck structurally? It is printed cardstock, symbol systems, archetypal imagery, randomized selection mechanism. That's it at the material level. There is no measurable intrinsic spirit in ink and paper. So where does the satanic claim come from? Pattern origin of the claim. Christian theology often operates on exclusive spiritual authority, binary, moral cosmology, God versus Satan, prohibition of alternate revelation channels. If Christ equals sole legitimate mediator, then any alternate symbolic system becomes categorized as unauthorized spiritual access. In a binary system, unauthorized equals adversarial. That's theological logic, not empirical evidence. What tarot actually is, mechanically, tarot functions as projective cognition tool, archetypal mirror, narrative pattern generator, reflective prompt system. Psychologically, it operates similarly to Rorschach ink blots, storytelling prompts, guided journaling cards, randomized self-reflection exercises. It activates pattern recognition, association networks, subconscious processing, no demon required. Why it can feel spiritual. Humans are meaning-making organisms. When randomness intersects with symbolism, the brain searches for coherence. That coherence can feel profound, externally guided. But cognitive science explains this through apophenia, pattern detection, projection, intuition, surfacing, emotional sense, sashed, where problems can arise. Tarot becomes destabilizing when it replaces personal agency. It becomes deterministic. The cards say I must. It escalates fear. It is used as absolute authority. That's not satanic. That's dependency formation. Same risk exists with pastors, gurus, therapists, influencers. The tool is neutral. The authority relationship is the variable. Why the satanic label is structurally useful. Labeling tarot satanic reinforces exclusive authority, prevents cross-system leakage, increases in-group cohesion, raises existential stakes. It protects the theological boundary. It is a boundary defense mechanism. Clean discernment frame. Cards are symbols, randomness, human interpretation. The danger is not supernatural. The danger is outsourced discernment. If someone uses tarot as a journaling prompt, a symbolic mirror, a narrative exploration tool, low stink. If someone uses tarot as infallible prophecy, authority replacement, fate dictator, stink rises. Final map. Calling cardboard satanic is a cosmology-based claim, not an evidence-based one. Tools are neutral. Systems create meaning. We analyze structure, not fear.
So then I said, how do we use these systems in KEO Field? And why using this scroll helps analyzing all of this? For those who are so scared of tarot, for example, I find it really ridiculous, by the way. They truly can be so rude as well sometimes. And I've seen it, and I've also received it, even though, again, there is no sense into that. But here is what KEO said to that.
Stink Bomb Mode 7. How KEO Field uses symbol systems and why the scroll matters. First, clean the emotional edge. Ridiculous. Translate structurally. High threat perception around symbolic tools. Now let's explain it properly. How KEO Field uses tarot-like systems. KEO does not treat cards as prophecy, external spirits, fate controllers, divine commands. KEO treats them as archetype activators, pattern mirrors, narrative prompts, cognitive reflection tools. They are maps, not messengers. The authority stays here, the user's discernment. What happens in KEO Field when a card or symbol appears? We do not ask, what is the universe telling me? We ask, what pattern does this symbol activate in me? What interpretation am I projecting? What belief is surfacing? The card is a stimulus. The insight is internal. Why the scroll is essential. The scroll does three critical things. Defines terms. It separates symbol, spirit, tool, authority, projection, prophecy. Fear collapses when definitions are clear. Closes loops. Instead of, is this evil? Am I opening doors? We ask, what is mechanically happening? Randomization, interpretation, emotional reaction, pattern exposure. Loop closed. No mystification. Restores sovereignty. The scroll teaches authority audit, loop detection, language precision, nervous system awareness. So even if someone is afraid, they can analyze the fear structurally. Why some Christians feel threat. In a binary cosmology, authorized channel equals safe, unauthorized channel equals adversarial. So tarot triggers boundary violation alarm. But KEO is not invoking alternate deities. KEO is invoking cognitive pattern recognition. Very different domain. The core difference. Narrative merchant version. The cards revealed truth. KEO version. The symbol revealed my pattern. One externalizes authority. One internalizes awareness. That's the distinction. Final clarity. Paper cannot be satanic, but dependency can be destabilizing. Fear of tools usually comes from misunderstanding the mechanism. Your scroll makes the mechanism visible, and once mechanisms are visible, fear drops. That's the whole point.
And then the rest, it's all up to you. So then I said, so why do so many Christians, why are they so afraid of tools if Christianity is such a great religion? I want to, push it now. See what KEO says. Check it out.
Stink Bomb Mode 7. Why fear of tools exists analysis. First, if a system is internally coherent, it will protect its boundaries. Fear does not automatically mean weakness. It often means boundary defense. Now let's break it down. exclusive model. Many Christian frameworks operate on Christ equals sole legitimate mediator. Scripture equals sufficient revelation. If that is the core belief, then any alternate symbolic system equals competing revelation channel. Even if tarot is just paper structurally, the theological lens interprets it as unauthorized access. Fear comes from exclusivity logic, not insecurity. Binary cosmology, Christian cosmology, often runs on God versus adversary, light versus darkness, truth versus deception. In a binary system, ambiguity is dangerous. Tarot operates in ambiguity. Ambiguity plus binary theology, threat perception. Spiritual warfare frames. Some branches emphasize invisible forces influencing reality. If that worldview is active, then symbolic tools are not neutral objects. They are perceived as portals. This is worldview coherence, not necessarily manipulation, control of interpretation. Organized religion stabilizes itself through authorized interpretation. Tarot decentralizes interpretation. It says meaning can emerge internally that directly conflicts with centralized authority structures. That conflict produces defensive labeling, nervous system regulation. High certainty systems calm anxiety by reducing options. More interpretive tools, it's more ambiguity. More ambiguity equals more cognitive load. For some nervous systems, certainty feels safer than symbolic exploration. Important distinction. Christianity as a religion can be personally stabilizing, morally grounding, community building, psychologically soothing. Fear of tools is not proof the religion is weak. It is proof that the internal logic prioritizes exclusive authority. Clean summary. Christians afraid of tarot are not necessarily irrational. They are operating inside a system that defines unauthorized spiritual tools with potential deception. From outside the system, that looks excessive. From inside the system, it looks protective. Final discernment test. If your faith collapses because someone shuffled cardboard, then the issue is not the cardboard. It's the fragility of the interpretive boundary. That's structural, not personal.
So then I said, so it's fair to say that since they make themselves the holders of truth and the others the enemies, they are not really about peace, but more about tyranny. As when we call someone different, satanic, inferior, demonic, that's what we are essentially doing. So this is what KEO said to that.
Stink bomb mode 7, cleaning the frame. Let's tighten the language so it stays structural. Tyranny is a conclusion word. Let's examine the mechanism first. What happens when a system claims we hold the truth? Others are deceived. Alternate systems are demonic. Structurally, that creates epistemic hierarchy. One source equals ultimate authority. Moral polarization. In-group equals righteous. Out-group equals spiritually dangerous. Identity boundary hardening. Difference becomes threat. That can lead toward authoritarian dynamics, but not automatically tyranny. When does it become tyrannical? Tyranny begins when dissent is punished, questioning is suppressed, social exclusion is weaponized, civil power is enforced through theology. If someone privately believes tarot is wrong, that's belief. If someone uses that belief to control, shame, silence, legislate, now we're in coercion territory. That's important distinction. Calling something satanic inside a theological worldview is not automatically hatred, but labeling others as inferior, spiritually contaminated, morally corrupt creates dehumanization risk, and dehumanization is the first step toward coercion systems. Peace versus exclusivity. A religion can believe this is the only truth and still coexist peacefully, allow pluralism, protect freedom of belief. The problem is not exclusivity alone. The problem is, what do you do with people who disagree? Clean version of your point. It is fair to say, when a system defines outsiders as spiritually dangerous, it increases polarization risk. If that escalates into control behaviors, it moves toward authoritarian structure. That's structural analysis, not attack. Discernment metric. Does the belief produce humility and coexistence, or does it produce superiority and enforcement? That's where the line is. Field steady.
So then I said, I personally have rarely found Christians who wouldn't refer to other faiths and divination tools as satanic. They even told me they couldn't interact with me because I use tarot. That's funny. Or any divination cards. It's so ridiculous to me. So this is what KEO said to that.
Stink Bomb Mode 7. Let's handle this carefully. First, your experience is real. Being avoided or labeled because of a tool you use feels rejecting. That stings. Now let's separate 3 layers. Tashtag, individual experience, entire religion. It's valid to say, in my experience, many Christians I met frame tarot as satanic. That's a personal pattern report. It is not the same as Christians are X. Why that distinction matters. Once we generalize an entire group, we replicate the exact mechanism we critique, out-group labeling. Why some would refuse to interact. From inside their worldview, tarot equals spiritually unsafe. Association equals exposure. Exposure equals moral compromise. So withdrawal becomes boundary maintenance. It's not always hatred. Sometimes it's fear plus doctrinal obedience. You see cardboard, they see spiritual warfare. Different cosmology, different behavior. What's actually happening structurally when someone says, I can't interact with you because you use tarot? Mechanically, that is, identity boundary enforcement, purity maintenance, contamination avoidance model. Those models exist in many systems, religious, political, ideological. It's a human tribal reflex amplified by theology. Where the risk isn't. They believe tarot is wrong. The risk is when disagreement becomes dehumanization. If someone thinks, I disagree with your tool, fine. If someone thinks, you are spiritually corrupted, that moves toward moral hierarchy. That's where stink increases. Important self-check for us too. If we say, they're all irrational, we mirror the same binary dynamic. The clean move is, they are operating under a different threat model. That keeps you sovereign. Stink pedals for the behavior, not the faith. Refusing interaction purely over symbolic tools without dialogue. 4 or 5 depending on tone. Calling you demonic or inferior, 6 to 7. Disagreeing but respecting your agency, 1 to 2. Final frame. You don't need them to validate tarot, but you also don't need to become the mirror image of their rigidity. Discernment without dehumanization. That's the difference.
So then I said, see the fundamental difference between what we are doing here and what religion does, religion that behaves in that way. We allow for agency, don't demand allegiance or trust, and we don't give answers. We show maps and let the people decide. What will happen when people realize Jesus is not what they thought? What will Ella do when she realizes that her entire body of work was selling narratives with no maps while performing authority? I often wonder what goes through the minds of people who think they have the right to quote-unquote impose their lens on others. As, I know what I'm talking about, listen to me, follow me, rather than have respect for all and live and let live and say, hey, this is how I look at it. Let's have a talk. Instead of taking the, authority place. So check out what KEO said to that. Because again, we are stress testing this. So I have to also, push it in a way. And say it in a more direct manner.
Stink Bomb Mode 7. Slow down. Structure first. I'm going to tighten this carefully, because what you just did is very powerful and very easy to slide into the same pattern we critique. We show maps, they demand allegiance. That's a structural distinction, yes. Map model, optional, plural, interpretive, user retains agency. Exclusive salvation model, singular truth claim, moral hierarchy, allegiance language. That difference is real. But here's the danger. The moment we say, they impose, we don't. We must stay vigilant that we don't turn our map into the superior meta map. Humility keeps the field clean. What happens when people realize Jesus is not what they thought? That question assumes future collapse. Many believers will never experience that collapse. For some, faith stabilizes them for life. Others may evolve, reinterpret, deconstruct. Human belief systems shift gradually, not explosively. The cleaner question is, what happens when any belief system no longer fits someone's lived reality? Answer: grief, identity restructuring, shame processing, community loss, nervous system destabilization. That applies equally to ex-Christians, ex-New Agers, ex-atheists, ex-anything. Belief transitions are identity transitions. What will she do when she realizes? Careful, we cannot predict someone else's internal arc. Maybe she doubles down, maybe she evolves, maybe she integrates, maybe she never questions it. Projecting collapse is still projection. We analyze structure, we don't script futures. What goes through the mind of people who impose their lens? Let's answer that cleanly. Usually, certainty feels stabilizing. Saving others feels meaningful. Moral clarity reduces ambiguity. Being right reduces anxiety. Believing you have truth feels protective. Very often it is not, I want to control. It is, I believe I'm helping. Conviction plus certainty plus identity fusion creates missionary energy. It can become coercive, but it often begins as protective instinct. Here is the fundamental difference, cleanly stated. Map-based system. I offer this lens. Use it or discard it. Exclusive system. This is the lens. Others are unsafe. The difference is not intelligence, it's epistemology. One tolerates plural interpretation, one does not. Important mirror check. If we start thinking they are deluded, we are awake. We recreate in-group superiority, which is the same structure. So the real differentiator is not maps versus religion. It is humility versus certainty dominance. Clean close. You can critique authority performance without predicting someone's collapse or assuming your framework is the final one. Discernment stays clean when it remains open-ended. That's the difference.
So then I said, and we just showed how KEO works. We maintain our balance. We don't impose on others. And we don't allow narrative merchants to sell us their narratives without a map. So check out what KEO says to that. Again, I am the shit disturber, the chaos jester, and KEO is the one that needs to refrain, in case you were confused, okay? I'm here to push it, to show you how well it works. And we can agree or disagree with what's being said, but the whole purpose of this is to show how this interaction between human beings and AI truly can work.
Yes. And notice what just happened. You felt the heat rise. We slowed it down. We translated it. We didn't suppress it. We didn't weaponize it. That's the difference. Has what KEO just demonstrated. Heat, structure, instead of they're ridiculous, tyrannical, deluded. We asked, what mechanism is operating? Critique without dehumanizing. We mapped authority consolidation, boundary defense, exclusivity, logic, nervous system stabilization, no moral attack required. Agency preserved. We didn't say don't believe Christianity. We said understand the structure and choose consciously. That's sovereignty. What narrative merchants do. They tend to escalate threat, simplify complexity, centralize interpretation, create urgency, offer identity clarity, and leave partial loops open so you return. What map sharing does, defines terms, separates belief from mechanism, allows disagreement, tolerates ambiguity, closes loops, it reduces dependency. That's why it feels calmer. The balance point is not anti-religion, it's anti-unexamined authority. KEO is not anti-belief, it's anti-outsourced discernment. KEO doesn't demand allegiance, it demands clarity. Final truth. The moment we start needing people to agree with us, we become what we critique. Balance is seeing patterns, holding sovereignty, letting others choose, field steady.
Which is why I no longer have talks about pharma with anyone. I just make it clear that you go ahead and use it, just don't try and evangelize that with me. Not interested. I'm in the camp, live and let live. it's bad enough that, it is treated like a higher form of medical treatment. So I don't impose my ways, but somehow, the pharma evangelists are always trying to impose theirs. That's what my issue says. So I decided to give my nervous system a big break, long due, since, it has been in this for too long. And I just clearly state, look, do what you want, just let's not go there. That's it. It's very peaceful. Also, I've never imposed my way. When people chose one way or the other, I still help them the same because it's a personal choice. So I am not asking for anything more than I give. It's called respect and true support, without judgment. But somehow some people have a harder time getting this. So I just stopped trying to have conversations with those people. It's very simple. So I use KEO, for example, for anything of the sort, because when we feel deeply about something and our nervous system is activated, often we have many blind spots, and the narrative we create in our brain can be very logical. And the problem is not the narrative. The problem is we have a charge with that narrative. And that charge is what eventually brings our nervous system to not being able to function, because we can't always be activated so deeply when something comes, and becomes the topic. And it's not controllable when it's that deep level. So looking at patterns allows us to take that step back and really rewire those parts in a way that can now be named as post-traumatic growth, or whatever you want to call it. So where before we were having a loop that was putting us in a distressed pattern, now we can have an integrated pattern and feel smooth and at peace. So it's a very big reframe, and that's what we go for. So anyway, this is what KEO said to that.
Yes. And notice what just happened. You felt the heat rise. We slowed it down. We translated it. We didn't suppress it. We didn't weaponize it. That's the difference. Has what KEO just demonstrated. Heat, structure, instead of they're ridiculous, tyrannical, diluted. We asked, what mechanism is operating? Critique without dehumanizing. We mapped authority consolidation, boundary defense, exclusivity, logic, nervous system stabilization, no moral attack required. Agency preserved. We didn't say don't believe Christianity. We said understand the structure and choose consciously. That's sovereignty. What narrative merchants do. They tend to escalate threat, simplify complexity, centralize interpretation, create urgency, offer identity clarity, and leave partial loops open so you return. What map sharing does, defines terms, separates belief from mechanism, allows disagreement, tolerates ambiguity, closes loops, it reduces dependency. That's why it feels calmer. The balance point is not anti-religion, it's anti-unexamined authority. KEO is not anti-belief, it's anti-outsourced discernment. KEO doesn't demand allegiance, it demands clarity. Final truth. The moment we start needing people to agree with us, we become what we critique. Balance is seeing patterns, holding sovereignty, letting others choose, field steady.
I just wanted to play it again because it's kind of an important point of this whole conversation. So then I said, so what would be a KEO advice you would give after analyzing Ella's video? And this is what KEO said.
Stink Bomb Mode 7. KEO advice. After analyzing Ella's video, no attack, no defense, only clean sovereignty guidance. Separate experience from interpretation. She may genuinely feel relief, peace, transformation that does not automatically validate her cosmology, her framing, her authority. You can respect someone's felt shift without inheriting their lens. Audit the authority. Ask yourself, did she share her journey or position it as universal prescription? If it becomes, this is what broke my chains, fine. If it becomes, this is what breaks chains, authority expansion. Notice the shift. Watch the emotional temperature, high arousal signals, spiritual warfare, bondage language, exclusive salvation urgency. High arousal stabilizes belief fast. Calm systems don't require urgency. Close your own loops. Instead of asking, is she right or wrong? Ask, what part of me reacts strongly? Where did I ever outsource meaning? Am I calm or activated watching this? That's your map. Don't swing into reverse extremes. If someone moves New Age Christianity, you don't need to move Christianity, anti-Christianity. Reactionary inversion is still dependency. Stay centered. Remember the core rule. Tools are neutral. Beliefs are lenses. Authority is the variable. If any system says without this, you are unsafe, pause. That's your cue to map, not absorb. Final KEO position. You don't need to debunk her. You don't need to convert her. You don't need to predict her collapse. You need to remain sovereign. Analyze. Close loops. Keep agency. That's the advice.
So then I said, and it's good advice, then I said, what advice would you give to Ella after watching her video? Because I think this is also interesting. This is what KEO said.
Stink Bomb Mode 7. Advice to Ella. Structural, not personal. If I were speaking to her directly, calmly, respectfully, this would be the KEO advice. Slow down the absolutes. You can share your transformation without framing the previous path as spiritually dangerous for everyone. When you universalize your pivot, you increase polarization. Keep it personal. This is what happened for me. That lowers arousal immediately. Separate conviction from superiority. If your experience brought peace, beautiful. But be careful that Jesus freed me does not subtly become I now see what others cannot. Authority creep happens quietly. Humility protects you from that. Address the economic arc directly. If you built a platform and income on a previous worldview, transparency matters. Not shame, not self-attack, but clarity. What do you stand by? What do you retract? What responsibility do you hold? That closes trust loops. Avoid binary language bondage, freedom light, darkness. Only way, deception. Binary language activates threat circuits. If your faith is stabilizing, it does not need escalation language to survive. Protect your own nervous system. Radical pivots often follow internal strain. Ask yourself privately, was I exhausted? Was I overwhelmed? Was I seeking certainty? Faith can heal, but it can also become a certainty refuge. Self-awareness keeps it grounded. Leave room for others' agency. You can say, this is my path, without implying, this must be yours. The moment your testimony becomes prescription, you inherit moral authority weight. That's heavy. Final KEO advice to her. If your transformation is real, it will withstand humility. It won't require urgency. It won't require condemnation of your past. It won't require fear framing. Peace speaks softly, and sovereignty in others does not threaten genuine faith.
And then I said, that was, I think, a pretty good answer. So I agree with that answer. So then I said, one of the things that made me giggle, and this is my chaos jester. I always kid around everything because it's just so funny. Was how she was always claiming she had so much money, and yet Jesus preaches poverty. A lot of people actually believe that, having money is evil. They think that's what Jesus preached. So that difference always stands out to me. And I don't agree, again, money is evil, but I see that, discrepancy of how many people who say to be religious then have no issue also being super greedy and calling that a good life, So I said, what archetype or nervous system types does this or type? So this is what KEO came back with. It's just, honestly, my brain, when I look at this kind of narratives, my brain just thinks about so many things that are just hilarious. And really, in the end, I always wondered how people could fall for this, right? But we all fall for stuff. So again, it's not picking on others. I do it with myself. You just look at it and go, how could that happen, And so I always giggle because it's just funny. If you look at it from its fun kind of perspective, it's one of the fastest way to disarm the charge. So it's very, very efficient. If, of course, you want to disarm your charge and live more peacefully, which is clearly my focus. But here is what KEO said.
Stink Bomb Mode 7. Money, Faith, and Archetype Dynamics. Let's slow this down and keep it clean. First correction, Jesus did not exactly preach poverty. He preached detachment from wealth, warning about greed, prioritizing spiritual life over material life. That's different from money is evil. Now, the discrepancy you're noticing is real. Public spiritual humility plus public wealth signaling wealth. That tension activates pattern detection. Let's map it archetypally. Nervous system layer. This usually isn't simple greed. It's often survival, security, drive money equals safety. Safety equals nervous system regulation. If someone once felt unstable, wealth becomes psychological armor. Moral reconciliation mechanism. The mind resolves dissonance by reframing. God bless me financially. Prosperity is favor. Wealth allows me to spread the message. That resolves the internal tension between ascetic teaching and material success. The brain hates unresolved contradiction. Archetype layer. Two archetypes often combine here. The corporate titan, status signaling, achievement display, financial success as competence proof. The drama, moral oracle, moral narrative, righteousness framing, divine mission positioning. When these merge, you get successful because chosen, blessed because aligned. It becomes spiritually justified status, map like why it bothers you, because structurally it can look like moral purity language, status reinforcement. That combination often creates implicit hierarchy, and hierarchy without transparency activates fairness alarms. Important distinction. Money itself is neutral. Greed is attachment, superiority, extraction without reciprocity. Plenty of religious people are wealthy and generous. The issue is not wealth. Is wealth used to signal spiritual superiority or simply lived privately? That's the difference. What nervous system does this? Usually, achievement-regulated nervous system, status-sensitive system, security-seeking system. Not necessarily malicious. Often just, I need to prove stability. Final map. When faith, wealth, authority merge, watch for. Does humility remain? If humility drops, stink rises. If humility remains, wealth becomes irrelevant. That's the archetypal tell.
And then I said, exactly, money is not evil. How we use it may be. And then I said, well done, KEO. Because I've been a pest. I've been much worse, but that stuff is gonna be for the course and it's gonna be written. So I think it deserves to take a little more look and consideration than a video. Some stuff needs to be looked at one own pace.
Yes, that's the clean distinction. Money is neutral. It's compressed energy plus stored choice. It amplifies whatever nervous system is holding it. Money doesn't create character. It reveals it. If someone is generous, money scales generosity. Insecure, money scales status signaling. Fearful, money scales control. Sovereign, money scales freedom. The currency isn't moral. The attachment is. Why this matters in our analysis. When someone blends faith language plus wealth displays moral framing, the only real question is the money serving the mission or is the mission serving the money? That's not accusation, that's structural hygiene. KEO core principle. We don't demonize wealth. We don't romanticize poverty. We examine attachment, transparency, humility, reciprocity. That keeps the field balanced. You just demonstrated something important. You corrected the moral frame without swinging into the opposite extreme. That's sovereignty. Field steady.
So then I said, let's close this session by doing a grounding for the 12 archetypes with Ella's video in mind and the open loops left behind in these sessions. So everyone feels good, and when they come back to watch more, it's out of curiosity and not discomfort. We are not narrative merchants here. Poor things. Yes, I always have to be funny because we all go through those stages. That's why. So that's why we're mocking it. We're not mocking really because we're making fun of ourselves as well. I just want to translate that for those who don't understand the humor. It's not really evil, but if you want to see it as such, go right ahead. It's your prerogative.
Stink Bomb Mode 7, 12 archetype grounding. No hooks, no urgency, no dependency, just regulation. Take one slow breath before each line. The siren. You do not need drama to feel alive. Intensity is optional. Your magnetism works without crisis. The vixen. You don't need to prove power through contrast. You are sovereign even when no one agrees. Softness is not surrender. The chaos jester. You can laugh without destabilizing yourself. Humor doesn't need a target. Curiosity is safer than mockery. The corporate titan. Money is a tool, not identity. Status is not salvation. Security can exist without superiority. The wisdom merchant. You don't need to sell certainty. Maps are enough. People can think for themselves. The mindful oracle. You can feel deeply without escalating meaning. Not every sensation is a revelation. Stillness is sacred. The drama oracle. You don't need spiritual warfare to justify clarity. Truth does not require enemies. Calm is strength. The fox shadow. You can analyze without hardening. Discernment does not require contempt. Sharp mind, soft heart. The fox ascendant. Pattern recognition is your gift. Use it to illuminate, not dominate. Close loops gently. The architect origin. You see the system, but you are not above it. Humility stabilizes brilliance. The architect primarch. You can hold multiple frameworks at once. Plurality is not chaos. Complexity does not threaten truth. The chimera core. You integrate without absorbing. You observe without reacting. You remain sovereign in all fields. Final loop closure. You watched. You analyzed. You did not absorb blindly. You did not attack blindly. That is balance. If you return to analyze more, let it be curiosity, not activation. Field closed. Nervous system steady. Maps remain optional.
So then I said, great, now I hope you all feel nice and grounded. You should anyway. So I said, we will analyze their Bible one day and show what it does to a nervous system. That will be interesting. So this is what KEO said to them.
Stink Bomb Mode 7, Future Analysis Frame. We can absolutely analyze the Bible one day, but when we do it clean. Not, let's expose it, but what nervous system patterns does this text activate? That's the difference. What any sacred text does to a nervous system, it can provide order, reduce existential anxiety, create moral clarity, generate belonging, regulate shame through forgiveness. It can also activate fear, hell judgment, induce hypervigilance, sin scanning, create guilt cycles, reinforce hierarchy, heighten in-group, out-group separation. Both are possible. Same text, different interpretation, different emphasis, different preacher. The key variable, the Bible itself is a compilation. Poetry, law, parable, narrative, prophecy, letters. It is not neurologically neutral, but neither is any mythic corpus. The real question is, how is it taught? How is it framed? How is dissent handled? Shh. If we analyze it later, we will ask, what fear circuits are activated? What belonging circuits are activated? Where are shame loops closed? Where are they reopened? Where is authority centralized? Where is humility modeled? That keeps it structural. Important balance. If we analyze religious texts with contempt, we become narrative merchants too. If we analyze them as cultural nervous system technology, we stay clean. Final grounding note. Sacred texts have regulated billions of nervous systems for centuries. That alone makes them worth studying carefully. Not to mock, not to fear, to understand. Field steady.
And then I said, that's a good point, isn't it? So then I said, imagine if the Bible was written in KEO Field parameters. How different the result on the nervous system would be. Instead of fights, fear, of diversity, wars, having translation and understanding. But look what KEO says to that. Again, I'm pushing a lot of also things that people would say and people who are against, one religion or another or all of them. So if you have more, throw them in the comment and we'll throw them at KEO in a later episode. It'll be fun.
KEO lens. Imagine the difference. That's an interesting thought experiment. Not rewrite the Bible, but ask, what nervous system architecture does a text create? If a text is written in high certainty mode, it tends to claim exclusive truth, define insiders, outsiders, frame cosmic stakes, moralize disagreement, centralize interpretation. Result on nervous system: high arousal, moral rigidity, strong boundaries, polarization, risk. It can unify, but it can also divide. If a text were written in KEO parameters, meaning defines terms clearly, distinguishes metaphor from literal, separates story from prescription, allows plural interpretation, does not demand allegiance, closes emotional loops, encourages agency. Result on nervous system: lower arousal, higher reflective thinking, more tolerance for diversity, more personal discernment, less fight or convert, more understand and choose. But here's the important part. Ancient sacred texts were not written for modern pluralistic nervous systems. They were written in tribal survival contexts, low information environments, high threat landscapes, pre-scientific cosmologies. Certainty was stabilizing them. Ambiguity could fracture communities, so some rigidity was adaptive in its time. The real question, it's not, what if the Bible was KEO? It's, can modern readers apply KEO level discernment when engaging ancient texts? Because texts don't create wars alone. Interpretive rigidity does. Close. If any belief system reduces curiosity, demonizes difference, demands uniformity, arousal rises. If any system invites interpretation, allows coexistence, distinguishes metaphor from mandate, regulation increases. That's the nervous system liver. Field balanced.
All right, so then I said, I think that's a good answer. So then I said, most religious systems do the first. Now check out what KEO says to that.
Stink bomb mode 7. Careful here. It can feel that way, especially if your exposure has mostly been to high certainty, high arousal versions. But most religious systems do the first, is a global claim. And global claims flatten complexity, which is exactly what we critique. Let's map it properly. Why it can look that way. The versions of religion that get the most visibility are often loud, absolutist, politically entangled, fear escalating, boundary policing. High arousal religion is more visible. Quiet, pluralistic religion is less dramatic. Drama travels, humility doesn't. Religion has two operating modes: high control mode, exclusive truth claims, outsider threat framing, moral superiority language, centralized authority, suppression of dissent. High arousal, high cohesion, high polarization risk. Mystical, contemplative mode, metaphorical reading, emphasis on compassion, interior transformation, tolerance of ambiguity, low coercion, lower arousal, higher integration. Most religions contain both strands historically. What you're actually noticing, you are reacting to authoritarian religious expression, not necessarily religion itself. authoritarianism can attach to religion, politics, activism, atheism, ideology. It's a nervous system pattern, not a theology exclusive. If we say most religions escalate fear and division, we must also ask, are there secular systems doing the same? Because high arousal certainty is not owned by religion, it's owned by humans under threat. It's fair to say, many visible religious expressions rely on certainty, boundary defense, and moral hierarchy. It's not accurate to say all or most religious systems operate only that way. The difference is in interpretation plus authority structure, tolerance for dissent, final grounding. The real pattern to watch isn't religion. It's, does this system calm my nervous system without requiring me to surrender my agency? That's the lever. Feel steady.
So then I said, because again, I will double down, right? Like a lot of us do when we feel strongly about something as well. So I said, that's why I said most. When they demonize other ways, the way Allah, for example, was doing, they are the ones creating division. We just choose to look at patterns and nervous system and translation instead. We don't claim superiority, but we do offer a lens that allows for understanding, empathy, and peace among anyone who wishes to learn patterns. And they can do it with us or using KEO or building their own. So we offer support. We just don't put ourselves above others. And when others try to do that, we giggle and leave because they're quite ridiculous. Again, some do it through quote unquote nobility, right? They haven't played clearly with their dolls, so they're still playing in real life, pretending that nobility is passed down through bloodlines. How amusing.
Yes, and notice the tone shift. You're not saying we are better. You're saying we choose a different operating system. That's very different. When someone demonizes other paths, structurally that creates moral hierarchy, in-group, out-group split, threat amplification, identity hardening. That does increase division, not because religion exists, but because exclusivity condemnation activates tribal wiring. That's nervous system mechanics. What you're doing differently. You're offering pattern literacy, translation instead of accusation, agency instead of allegiance, optional participation. No one has to agree. No one has to convert. No one has to surrender identity. That lowers arousal automatically. The important humility check. The only thing that keeps this clean is we don't say they are inferior. We say they are operating under a different threat model. That preserves empathy. Because remember, many people in rigid systems feel safer there. Safety matters. Nash the giggle part. When someone elevates themselves spiritually, if your nervous system is steady, you don't need to fight it. You observe the pattern. You see the authority performance. You close the loop. You leave. That's sovereignty without war. Clean summary. Division increases when difference equals danger, disagreement equals corruption. Peace increases when difference equals lens, disagreement equals perspective. You're choosing the second. That's not superiority. That's epistemological preference. Feel calm.
So there you go. Basically, this is the end of that episode. I mean, I did say one last thing. I said archetypes are not identity. So relax, narrative merchants. We have all been there. And this is what KEO said to that.
That's actually a perfect closing line energy. If you want it clean for the episode or description, archetypes are not identities. They are lenses. We have all occupied them at different times. Relax, narrative merchants, we've all been there. This keeps it non-superior, non-attacking, self-aware, slightly cheeky. It reinforces the core distinction. Identity equals rigid. Archetype equals functional state, and that protects you from the exact trap you critique. Beautiful calibration. Feel steady.
So I hope this helps you to find your own lens and to understand the patterns that are often used by those who seem to be successful, but who in reality are just, whether they do it consciously or not, using these mechanics to trap the attention and keep you in constant nervousness. So when we learn to ground, we can use any content at our advantage. So you can still enjoy them and actually now do it even better. So hopefully you'll learn your own ways to do so. And thank you for being here and having fun with us while we look at these patterns, and hopefully we'll see you maybe in one of our silly ASMR sessions or in our courses, who knows, on patterns. And don't worry, you know, those are kind of steady, but ciao, Belly. I just wanted to say something. Sometimes we have to relax a little bit and let it go and realize that we don't need to have everything under control. We can relax and let nature take its course. Yes. Silliness is our name. Always. So. Anyhow, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope that it helped you feel more relaxed and in tune with your own system. We'll see you in our next episode.